What do you see? Chocolate, fancy watches, snow-capped Alps, and neutrality, right? A peaceful, perfect little country that just minds its own business. Well, what if I told you that for most of its history, Switzerland was one of the most feared and brutal military powers in Europe? That the peaceful Swiss were actually Europe's most sought-after and deadliest mercenaries? Yeah, let's rewind the clock. Forget the serene bankers for a moment and meet the Reisläufer, the Swiss pikeman. Back in the late Middle Ages, around the 13th and 14th centuries, Switzerland wasn't a unified country. It was a rugged, poor land of independent cantons, basically a loose alliance of farming communities in the Alps. They were surrounded by powerful, greedy empires like the Habsburgs, who were constantly trying to take over. So how did these poor mountain farmers survive? They got really good at fighting. They developed a revolutionary military tactic, using a weapon called the pike, basically a super long spear. They would form these massive, dense squares of men, bristling with pikes like a giant hedgehog. Imagine you're a knight on horseback, the medieval equivalent of a tank. You charge at what you think is a bunch of peasants, and suddenly you're faced with an unbreachable wall of steel points. Your horse rears, you can't break through, and a guy with a halberd, a nasty axe spear hybrid, pulls you off your horse and, well, it's over. The Swiss pikemen were disciplined, fearless, and utterly ruthless. They didn't play by the noble rules of war, they fought to win, and they became legendary for it. Their reputation spread like wildfire. Kings and popes all over Europe thought, I need those guys on my side. So, the Swiss started exporting their only real commodity, violence. For centuries, Swiss mercenaries were the elite soldiers for hire. If you had a war to win, you hired the Swiss. They fought for the French, for the Spanish, for the Pope in Italy. In fact, the Pope's personal bodyguards, the famous Swiss Guard you see at the Vatican today, are the last remnant of this mercenary tradition. But here's the twist, this mercenary business had a dark side. Often, Swiss mercenaries found themselves hired by opposing armies. So you'd have Swiss fighting Swiss on a foreign battlefield. Brother against brother, cousin against cousin, all for a paycheck. It was tearing their society apart back home. The turning point came in 1515 at the Battle of Marignano. It was a bloodbath. Thousands of Swiss mercenaries were killed. The survivors went home, looked at the devastation, and had a collective moment of clarity. They realized this path of constant war was unsustainable. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to change. They passed laws restricting mercenary service, and they made a radical decision. Instead of fighting everyone's wars, they would stay out of all of them. This wasn't some high-minded philosophical choice at first. It was a pragmatic, life-or-death decision to stop their nation from bleeding itself dry. And so the policy of neutrality was born, not from a history of peace, but from a history of so much war that they simply got sick of it. Over the next few centuries, they built this neutrality into their national identity, turning their country from Europe's battlefield into its safe haven and financial hub. So the next time you see a Swiss flag, don't just think of peace and quiet. Remember the fierce mountain warriors and the bloody battlefields that forced one of Europe's most warlike people to become its greatest advocates for peace. The real story is always more interesting, isn't it?